The preeminence in the landscape of a great circular mound of earth surrounding the Acropolis of the hill in Viladonga revealed the existence of a hill fort under the crops. Furthermore, there is an age-old tradition of old objects found by residents of the area, especially a rigid gold necklace of considerable archaeological value, which confirmed the presence of an important archaeological site still to be researched. The first excavations started in 1971 and were followed by other archaeological campaigns in 1918, 1990 and 2000, which brought to the surface the remains of a village which covered the whole hilltop. The structures and objects found in the following excavations provide data which needs putting in order and interpreting. Comparison with other hill forts, as well as the geology, history and knowledge of the environment, will help archaeologists to document the way of life of the ancient inhabitants of Viladonga. The oldest remains were found in a very specific area on the northeast of the hill fort and date back to the 1st and 2nd centuries BC. It seems that the place was inhabited from at least the Iron Age, but these old remains are very few and do not suggest a significant settlement at that moment in time. In fact, it's evident that the buildings and structures of Viladonga are later. Most of the buildings are quadrangular, and clay tiles appeared by their side, which were introduced by the Romans. In the circular floor houses, the roof was held up by a central post and a wooden framework. On top, successive layers of straw, tree branches, sticks and broom were placed and consolidated by using ropes tightened with stone weights. In the quadrangular buildings, the tile roofs were placed on a wooden structure supported directly by the walls. Some of these structures have corners at a right angle, which was not common until the late Roman period. Viladonga is an example of how a village integrated Castresha culture into Romanized Galicia. A few kilometers from Viladonga, the walls of Lucus Augusti, the capital of Galaecia, were under construction in the 3rd century. In this period, hill forts were losing ground in comparison with rural villages and urban centers, which grew up with the definitive Romanization of the northwest. Formally, the Viladonga hill fort is of a typical interior kind, with an irregular quadrangular top on a hill and protected by a walls and moat system. The main wall is a huge lineal mound of earth with thick flagstone walls on the inside. The second wall is also made of earth on the outside, but it has an interior stone wall, at least on the east side of the hill fort. The third and fourth walls on the east side are built of earth and unfixed stones. The moats are dug in a U-shape in the natural rock, and together with the walls make up a well-structured defensive system, threefold on the northeast and southeast sides of the hill fort. However, more than defensive elements, the walls seem to be a matter of prestige or just territorial limitation. On the south and west sides, some anti-hill forts are preserved, traditionally linked to agriculture and cattle farming, even though in the latest excavations, some constructions appeared whose use has not been clearly defined. It could be considered a rudimentary urbanization inside the hill fort, with two main pathways which cross the top from north to south and from east to west, and an inside circular path. The buildings are laid out around these paths in districts or habitable groups, possibly belonging to family groups. In the period of maximum occupation, from 200 to 250 people could have lived in Viladonga. In the house closings, white quartz pebbles to fix and strengthen the foundation of the walls came to light. They could have been to mark passage areas or have had a symbolic meaning. A larger construction stands out with a very long floor. Its purpose is still a mystery. It could have had a social or religious use as a meeting point, or simply have been a communal storage silo. These doubts might be solved by finding new remains. Apart from the stone structures, which define the architecture of the hill fort, other remains came to light which provide information about the uses, habits, and lifestyle of its inhabitants. In the Viladonga hill fort, metal remains and bronze smelting molds were found, which reveal a certain mining and metallurgical activity. This would make sense of the cave which appeared in the southeast anti-hill fort, which could well be an entrance to extract minerals. The seed and pollen remains suggest an agricultural based mainly on cereals. Several circular grain mills are also preserved along with metal parts of farming implements, such as hoes, sickles and mattocks. Bones, teeth and footprints of different domestic animals left in pottery remains prove the existence of cattle farming. Weaving and spinning objects were also present, such as knits, circular pieces in the end of wooden spindles, and several loom weights. Nevertheless, most of the archaeological remains found at Viladonga hill fort are from pottery fragments with a great variety of types, shapes and decorations. There are numerous pieces of Castro culture tradition, possibly from a local metal workshop. They are simple and decorated with cuts, stamps or designs in the shape of round hills or strings. Pieces of common Roman pottery were also found, made on a wheel with different shapes and simple decoration. Among them, amphorae with a flat base in which products of Roman origin would possibly arrive at the hill fort, such as wine, oil and wheat. Various fragments of terra sigillata, a very fine mould pottery of orangish or reddish colour, were also found. This pottery donates a certain socio-economic level and commerce with other parts of the empire. Some of it comes from the south of France or from Tricio in La Rioja. Other fragments come from a workshop in Zamora, clearly identified by their decoration. Other pieces were also foreign, such as a gold ring probably of Mediterranean origin, and a bridle from the eastern part of the empire. Some glass remains are preserved, made with glass blowing or mold techniques, which reduced the price and generalized their use from the 1st century AD on. The glass containers were varied: prismatic bottles and jugs, glasses and small cups, flasks. This exchange activity is also evident from the finding of coins. Only 182 of the 1,800 found are sufficiently well preserved as to be identified without doubt. Others can only be identified approximately, but we know mints from the 3rd and 4th centuries are predominant. Jewellery, ornamental pieces and clothing accessories were also found. Some of them clearly form part of the Castresha cultural tradition, such as rigid necklaces and some types of earrings. And more linked to the Roman world, hair clasps, necklace beads, metal and jet rings, belt buckles, buttons, hairpins and brooches. The appearance of board games at the hill fort shows the inhabitants' fondness for games of chance and intelligence in their leisure time. Regarding their beliefs, we suppose from historical sources that there would be a combination of native rituals assimilated to Roman cults. Some pieces, such as charms, are related to those ritual and cultic activities. We now have a portrait of the hill fort in its period. The numerous later Roman findings date its period of glory to the 3rd to 5th centuries. Handicraft, agricultural and cattle farming work lead us to conclude Viladonga society was a self-sufficiency economy, complemented with trade exchange. We can only imagine a society perfectly adapted to the land with very little external dependence, even though it was open to what was outside. In other words, we see a mirror in which any traditional village of inland Galicia is reflected. Who knows how much information and how many remains are still buried at Viladonga hillfort? There are still significant gaps in the story. For example, we do not know where the Acropolis, their cemetery, was. In fact, most of the southeast of the Acropolis has not been dug yet. Maybe in future archaeological work something will be found which provides new data or questions some of the conclusions from the work done to date. Research work is ongoing, and little by little our own image from Viladonga hillfort is better defined.